live already. It's weird. This Riverside app, for some reason. Here, let me split the screen here. There you are. There I am. Yeah, like so you were in the backstage, it said here. And so I was letting you in, but as soon as I do that, it goes live and it's done that before. So here we go.
Okay. All righty.
How are you? Yeah, how are you this evening?
Not bad. Hopefully, there's not too much background noise.
Yeah, no, that's all right, man. I probably get some background noise being in the city here. And so yeah, this is gonna be a surprise for people. I've been trying to get people on, and here we are.
Mhm.
This is all of a sudden, man. I was gonna take a few minutes and try to, drop my intro and all that. It didn't happen. We're just straight into the live, man. And yeah, that's how it happens, man. And so I'm learning. I'm learning how to do this. I think you're my third guest. I've had a couple others. You know Tate Hieronymus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen
Tate's
him.
been
I
on.
don't know him personally.
Right, right, right. And like you, I know of you. I know you through YouTube and stuff like that, and being on Nikki's chat over at Sasquatch Secrets. And I've always yeah, like the way you comment, the way you look at Bigfooting and stuff like that. And so I thought it'd be great to have you on. And when you said yes, I was
Well,
like,
thank you.
yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's up, everybody? We got some people up in the chat. This is a surprise. Look, we got a guest here. We have Finding the Trackway on YouTube. And so, what, Bill? Are you out of Ohio, or what state are you in? If you don't mind sharing.
Uh, I've been in Ohio, and well, yeah, where I'm out of Ohio, but I've been all over.
Wow.
Um,
All right.
so
And so, when did you first get
I've
into the
been
whole Bigfoot topic, and how did that happen? How did you get bit by the Bigfoot bug?
well. Um, I've always been, a bow hunter and an outdoorsman, and over the years, I had some weird ongoings happen on out in the woods, and I always, for one reason or whatever, brushed them aside. And then what really sparked it off was in 2020. I was down where I used to go hunting all the time. Big, huge campground. Usually nobody there, and there was nobody there this day. And I had some fishing gear that I took there rather than going out on a boat because I could walk back and forth, and work on stuff, tweak it up. And yeah, I started by taking a picture of the conditions of the pond and everything. And I cast it out. And not soon after that, it was a knock. And, okay, I didn't think anything too much of it. So a little bit of time goes by. There's another knock. This time it's closer. And a little bit more time goes by, and then there's a third one. This one's really close. I'm thinking at this point, I don't know what's going on. I'm the only one here. So I just set the fishing pole down on the ground and went back to the truck, got my sidearm, and just proceeded to go back to fishing, because this was in May. This wasn't when anything was dropping. So um, there was no walnuts falling. There was no acorns falling.
Mhm.
Butternuts weren't falling, but it was loud, it was pronounced, and it was coming closer. That's was my perception. So I run a bunch of trail cameras in the area that I hunt, and going through and reviewing the trail camera videos about the same time, I catch another knock, and it sounds just like the one on there. So at that point, I'm like, okay, that's it. I want to see if there's something really going on here. So I'm sure you've heard of Central Florida Bigfoot, Central Kentucky Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So I sent him the photos. I did actually what I did. I did a little video about the whole thing. It was one of my first videos, one of my worst videos ever, because I'm not a videographer. I'm hunter first. And he took it and he started looking through it. And at that time, he was on this um, pareidolia phase. So he zoomed in on that picture and he goes, "Oh, look at this one. That's great. You can see a mouth, a big bulbous nose, eyes, and everything." I'm like, "Wait, what?" And ever since seeing that picture, it's like, okay, well, what's going on here? And actually, that was in 22 when I sent him that. And then somewhere around that time frame in 22, um, I had an experience that literally started from first thing in the morning through midday and got pretty questionable at night. And since then, I've been looking for answers.
Right on. And
And I
going
have traveled to Florida for answers.
okay.
But
I was gonna ask really quick, what state was this incident at? The one that you were just explaining right quick, just to kind of
all
put
that was
me
in
in
Ohio.
Ohio. Right on. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so you've been out to Florida. Yeah,
So
the mhm.
mhm. Went to Florida, started chasing this down. Florida, out there out west and Columbia with Nikki and Brent, Thomas Steenberg, in the Cascades with Brent and Jonathan Rafferty, through New York with Jonathan Rafferty and Steve Coles and company,
Okay. And
and
Jonathan, excuse me, John,
Pennsylvania.
that's Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Cool, cool, cool. And he's
So, yeah.
another potential guest at one point. But go ahead, Bill. Sorry, excuse me. Go ahead, man.
Oh yeah, I would Jonathan. Jonathan's just he's an animal. We're out in grizzly country or whatever, big bear country, and nothing stops him, nothing phases him. He just goes all night long out in the
Wow.
woods. But yeah, anyhow, that drew me in, and like I said, it just exploded from there. In 2024, went all over the country. This past year, just been real busy with family issues. I haven't been able to get out but twice. And but now 2026 is rolling around, and we are preparing to get back out on the road again.
Wow. And so you've been out to the West Coast. You mentioned out east, different
Hmm.
areas. And currently, if you don't mind sharing, are you in Ohio now, or have you
Yes.
been? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, and one of the things that has been brought up lately is the whole flap situation, and I wanted to bring that
Hmm.
up while we have you here, and just your thoughts on that. And you mentioned you had some possible little insight, or maybe on some of the activity from those areas, or do you know those areas? Are you in those areas?
Well, I know that area pretty well. Okay, first off, for those not familiar with the geography, where the flap is occurring is about an hour to the northeast. The Salt Fork, where everybody hears about Ohio, that's where I'm sitting right now. It's
Wow.
over an hour down south. So there's about 2 hours, 2.5 hours travel time by vehicle between those two spots. So I wanted to get that out. But yeah, I'm pretty familiar with the area out there. I spent quite a bit of time out there, and I mean, I didn't. That's not really where I researched that, but I'm very familiar with it. And the Ontario Flap, I'm also familiar with that area because up until we got hit there in 2020 with the bug, um, we
Mhm.
I traveled up every year in the Trent River system up there in Ontario, and both geographies are pretty much the same. You're talking about glacial plain. Um, so the ground was pretty much flattened by the glaciers that created the Great Lakes, and then you start running into the foothills in Ohio of Appalachia. And in Ontario, though, I can't tell you too much more once you get past the Trent River system, but I know that's a lot of wilderness.
And so, have you had any experiences in the on that side of of that country in Ontario?
Uh, well, Ontario. I mean, we when we were up there, or when I was up there, we were just hardcore fishermen. We would go out fishing from the moment the sun went up, and we stayed out until the sun went down.
Oh
Can't
man.
say that anything unusual happened,
Hmm.
but I mean, they said you there's if something wants to move around up there, yeah, it could definitely. Um, Now, and the same thing with this area down here in Ohio. If something wanted to move around in there, it definitely could. It's just a question of where is the origin? Are they coming out of the Great Lakes, or what are they doing? What's the origin part of it? If there is something actually out there moving. So, I mean, we did a couple driving tours here in Ohio, and we haven't found anything yet on the cameras that we ran, but we're still looking.
Interesting, and that's super cool. And then going back to the fishing now, did you catch any fish up there? Because I know there's a difference.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean,
Oh
it's
wow.
you get up there and the fishing is just insane. And first week of July, last week of June, those time frames, and uh, yeah, it's just something else. I miss going up there. So, but
Awesome.
yeah, I mean, it was always a good time.
Cool, cool. Because I can see the fish on your shirt, and I'm big.
Mhm.
I love I'm not a pro or anything, but I grew up doing some fishing out here, and I did some up in Northern California, and I love it, and I love catching fish also. Yeah, man. So we got to hang out, Bill, one of these days, man, and do some fishing and squatching, and we'll leave one for the Bigfoot. That's the rule they say. You gotta at least leave one fish for the Sasquatch.
You know what? There might be something to that. There might be.
Yeah,
So I can't
and I'm
say I ever left a fish,
uh
but I did leave a, something out in the woods once, and I don't know if that was the catalyst for what happened next or what. So,
and yeah, I want to welcome everyone in. Also, this is we Bill and I planned this, also known as Finding the Trackway on YouTube. Um, yeah, we're planning on this, but it's weird with Riverside. Anytime I've put someone backstage so we could kind of plan the intro and drop our intro and all that,
mhm.
it just goes straight to the live. So I was kind of afraid that was going to happen, but ready for it, and here we are, folks. So we are live tonight. I know there's some other folks live tonight, and it's all good. Hey, I'm just glad we are able to line up with finding the trackway here. And I seen the other evening over on Nikki's stream, Sasquatch
Mhm.
Secrets, which was a really good stream. I shared that out over on this channel, and so I was hanging out over there, and I noticed a Mrs. Trackway. And now, is there any
Yes,
relation, or should we not bring that? I was just like, hold on, i-
uh,
i- is there a connection here?
that's the wife.
Oh, right
That's
on,
the
man.
wife, and
Okay, cool,
she's probably listening in the other room. So,
cool.
um,
Salute.
she when I started getting into this, or what happened, um, what happened in 2022, it's the first time ever I left a place ever. I mean, I've hunted for years, spent 13 days out in a row in the woods. I have been woke up by somebody looking in the truck who wasn't supposed to. Now, it wasn't a Bigfoot, but it was a person. And uh, that didn't bother me. A lot of other stuff didn't bother me. But that night in 2022 was um, the first and only time I ever left the woods. And I wouldn't go back there unless she went with me. And or at least somebody. And unfortunately, it was her. So it just, I didn't know. I needed somebody to confirm what exactly was going on. So, um, so she's been with me out on these excursions. Um, You know, she didn't go with us out to West to Washington, but she went with us. She's been with me every place else.
Right on. Well, that's always good when couples could do that, partners, and could share, you know, some good times out in the field, and they don't necessarily need to be out there with night vision and a thermal and doing all that, but yeah, I've noticed,
Well,
there's yeah, some partners, they just don't get along when it comes to this subject, and it's hard for
well,
both of them. And yeah, go ahead.
well, she's geared up, and she's my anchor. So if I go off on a tangent or whatever, she fulfills that role to like, hey, slow down, look at it differently. Let's consider some things here, and she keeps me grounded as we go about looking because she's uh, agnostic about it, but at the same time she's interested. So I mean, she has her own gear. I have mine, and we go out together, and um, you know, we may be changing our methodology because we used to do the night walks a good bit and all that, and we've kind of reevaluated that ideology, or I'm not sure if that's the right word. Um, that those chosen techniques that we've been using and switching things up and maybe doing things a little bit differently than how we've been working.
Yeah. And I think it's important also. I see more women getting into the field, which is awesome, I think. And it brings a different element, I think, to either a group or a situation.
Hmm.
Um and I think it's good to have that, like you're saying, yeah, she's your anchor, and I'm sure in many
Hmm.
ways than you just explained as well, and a lot of us need that, and especially if you're out in the field too. It's super cool to have your partner as a female uh anchor, and yeah, I like it. And I've gone out with my partner several times now. She's not full on uh you know, with gear or anything like that. But, she does her thing, she is good out in the woods and likes to forage for
Hmm.
stuff and loves being in the kitchen. And the times that we have been out, like you also shared with us, she's my anchor as well. So yeah, it's nice to have that. But then it's also, yeah, it's different when she's not around. And so that brings a whole other
Yep.
vibe and element to things. So yeah, go ahead. You were gonna say something?
Uh, I don't know. I totally agree. When you're out there, you know, she's with me. I said I feel grounded. I feel that anytime I might jump the gun, she grabs a hold of me, pulls me back, and says, "Eli, let's look at this more in depth." And um, and she's all about getting out there, and some of her funnest times is we do this thing where we if we're out there with other groups, several people, um, she wants to go out and she wants to do lone sits. She wants to have you know her own interaction with whatever it is out there, or she wants to go out there and follow along the thought process of maybe these things are more receptive to females. So we've done that a few times too.
Yes, and I've heard of that, and I'm sure the women out there will all agree. Greetings, Carol, in the chat there. Good to have you on tonight and hanging out with us. Yeah, and I think there's something to that. I'm telling you, so there's a certain vibe, a certain energy, of course, about women, and settle down, guys, settle down. And you might hear a train uh pulling up in the background here. We get a train that goes by. I don't know if our mic picks it up, but I always bring it up uh when it does happen in case anyone hears it. So all aboard, folks. Um yeah, there's definitely a different vibe. And of course, usually bigfooting is a bunch of guys, and you know, so that's a
Hmm.
particular energy. but when you have a woman around, of course, the men should be behaving a lot more. You know, they're not
Yeah.
acting like our usual selves. Where we are, at least most of us. I can't vouch for everybody, but yeah. So there's that whole those elements of stuff. So I think it does definitely plays a role. I know there's some groups out there that are just all women,
Hmm.
and so yeah, it seems like they probably have a little more activity, and I'd be curious if I was a Bigfoot, a male Bigfoot, I'd be interested in what the ladies are
But
up to also.
we've had some moments out there, and um, I won't say that she's had like a Bigfoot moment. We've captured some moments that make us go, wait, what? Um, Particularly like during an excursion in West Virginia, it was really weird because we the girls would be walking and talking, and suddenly out of the nowhere in the audio or whatnot, there's a male voice. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, but it happened multiple times on the recording, and I just thought, oh, okay. Of course, the girls didn't know it. Not at the same time, um, I'm out on the other edge of my buddy Bud, and we're both. He's worried about his wife over on the other ridge. They're on one side. We barely got radio contact between us, but they go and they did their thing, and they brought back some really odd audio going through it. So I can't really explain it, but they brought back something.
Interesting. Now, the audio is you explained the male voice, and is
Mhm.
was that something that they heard in real time, or was it after
Oh,
reviewing?
it was in review.
Okay. And so do you think that voice could possibly be like what people uh talk about disembodied voices, or like EVPs? Could it have been something like that, or you think it's something that happened in real time? They just probably didn't hear it in the moment.
Well, that's uh, I say this. You never really 100% certain because if you're out there with two people and they were it was Mrs. T and our friend Angie.
Mhm.
They weren't individually mic'd, and we have learned in the past that when you go out and you're doing this stuff, that if you're moving a microphone or whatever can cause a distortion in whoever's talking. I've had, you know, we had an episode where I thought, oh wow, I caught infrasound. I heard this uh, in the audio, and I was so excited. But fortunately, she had an audio recording on, and what it was a distortion of her saying that can happen because I stepped off the road and then dark and everything. She's just like, yeah, that can happen, and she kind of chuckled as I went down over the hill.
Mm.
But as far as with those two being out there, one, it's difficult to tell if you're picking up an audio distortion, and but um, I do have reason to suspect that what they picked up was either a disembodied voice or possible EVP,
Okay.
because it happened several times throughout that night.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think that's something worth, putting, in your notes if you're capturing stuff like that in a particular area. I don't know if I don't know if you go down that route, finding the trackway, but do you go down the route of some of the strange stuff? Have you had some of the odd things happen? And also before that, I did want to ask, there was something else that I wanted to ask you about the audio there. But anyway, yeah, do you go down? Have you,
Mhm.
because people talk about the super bizarre stuff with getting into this topic and going out and into areas. Is there any stuff like that that you could talk about and share with us?
Um, well, when we go out, the way I treat things is probably a little bit different than most Bigfooters. is that I'm going to just go out there and whatever I get, and I bring it back and I present it. And then I leave it either up to the audience or hopefully maybe someday a professional can look at it and then figure out what it is. So, I don't really go out there with any um, preconceived notion. I fully believe, leave all preconceived notions at the door and go out and bring back what you bring back. No matter how strange it is, no matter how, you know, flesh and blood, UAP, I don't, it doesn't matter. You know, just bring it back and hopefully we'll figure it out.
Right on.
But I have had some strange things happen. So, I've seen the light in the woods. Um, yeah, I've seen that pretty close. And yeah, and I've seen more than that actually.
Wow.
But I don't want to say that there's no reason for me to believe that that phenomenon is associated with the Bigfoot phenomenon. Everything's separate until there's some line causation that makes the connection between the two. I've seen things out in the woods that I would not say was a Bigfoot until I would see up close.
Right. Yeah,
But
that's it. Yeah, that's super interesting. And I always like to ask people that just to see what their answers are. And a lot of times, people usually have something, and there's sometimes people that don't remember certain things, but with a little bit of time and thinking, it's like, oh yeah, they do remember something. And it could be out in the desert as well. Yeah, no. So, the area
Mhm.
of Ohio you're in now, where you investigate and stuff, can you share with us what the geography is like around there? What the what, is it heavily wooded, or
Well,
what the terrain's like?
where I normally go, I prefer to go out down in the woods and get into more of the foothills. So you're not in the rugged hills of West Virginia. You're into more of a rolling hill country, and so that's the kind of area that I spend most of my time in. Now, like I said, the glacial plain. We're right at where the glacial plains end and Appalachia begins, and and so I kind of go back and forth, really, to both. To be honest with you, I don't spend a whole lot of time down at, you know, and a lot of people would suspect Salt Fork, but I've only been down there a couple of times, and um, it is interesting down there. Um, but I spend most of my time really up on the ridges.
Right on. And Salt Fork, they have or Ohio, it might be in Salt Fork. Is that the Ohio Bigfoot conference? Is that's held there, correct? At
Yep,
the Yep. And that's coming up in
yep.
a couple months or so. And do
Uh,
you attend that?
well, I'll be around it. Um, yeah, I'm not. I don't do presentations or anything. Um, I'm actually going to be out and about a good bit there, uh, searching. To be honest with you, even though I've lived here for most of my life, I never liked to go on down to Salt Fork because there's a lot of boat traffic and for fishing. I didn't really know that much about the state forest there until the last couple of years. And I kind of thought at the time, uh, I didn't know really what to think. I mean, you associate this phenomenon more with stuff going on out west than what you do out towards the east. And I really didn't expect to want to return to Salt Fork, but something did happen at Salt Fork, and I've been, trying to figure out that as well. Um, for lack of a better word, I saw something in the woods. It kind of gliding away um, at Camp through Thermal, and I was like, "What was that? That doesn't make any sense." and been trying to figure that out um, now for well at least 2 years.
Wow.
So if I hadn't seen that, I probably I don't think I would have went back last year.
Hmm. And so
Last year
you
was miserable. We just got sogged.
brain, huh? And
Oh
uh-oh.
yeah, it just
Uh-huh.
yeah, it rained like crazy because we went down before the conference started, like a week before, just because of that one 2 3 second incident. And we was down there quite a few, 3 4 days before, and we were joined by a couple friends, and still don't have answers for it. What we saw that night, or what I saw that night, is really weird.
And so
So
do you think that could have been maybe something along the lines of something paranormal, or what are your thoughts on it? I mean, if you don't mind sharing, I know some people would like to keep that private, don't want to, because you don't know, you don't want to
I
assume, but
the glide, the glide and everything was the glide and everything I would associate with the Sasquatch phenomenon. The way it just glided and went right behind a tree. But the fact that I didn't see, you know, it looked like a head. And it looked, oh, hopefully it's not me. Um,
you're
it
good.
looked like a head. And it wasn't that far away. Went behind a tree, and at that point, I'm looking at the thermal, going, "What did that just happen?" And I spun around and looked back at the campsite because I was on red hot, and this didn't look red hot. It looked like fur,
Hmm.
and it just glided right down behind the tree, and I don't really know exactly what that was because, for lack of a better word, it just looked like a head. I didn't see any shoulders. I didn't see anything. Just a head
Weird. And and
or the
so
back of a head.
and so you were able to capture this on thermal, or it didn't,
I
you weren't able
I
to?
saw it through thermal. I didn't get captured, but I did see it through thermal.
Interesting. Um, yeah, that's weird. And you're saying it didn't pop up as hot, but it did show.
No, it showed up. You know how when you take your thermal, because you've got your thermal, and if you're on red hot, and how you get the red tinge. Well, this it just, for lack of a better description, just um, you know, it just looked like hair. It looked. I always call it the floating coconut, but it wasn't really coconut shaped. It was kind of shaped like an egg, and I could see in the thermal it looked like hair. So
That is a
um,
trip.
yeah, and that's been one reason why. Um, like I said, that's been probably the primary reason for me to go back. I was trying to figure out what in the heck did I see there, and can I explain this? And we went through it the next day, and I never have found a satisfactory answer to it. Although some other stuff is of interest might be involved with it. I don't know.
Wow. We had I don't know if she's still in here, but the Cryptid Huntress. I know a good friend of hers, and he was a buddy through YouTube. I didn't get to meet him personally, but he went by Cryptidville, and he lived like right at the LBL, pretty much very close.
Mhm.
And yeah, he would share a lot of information that he experienced and stuff like that, which is and pretty, to me, solid dude, for me, a reliable source, never
Mhm.
anything fantastic or outlandish or anything crazy. And yeah, he talked about certain strange things, and unfortunately he recently passed away, so condolences to Cryptidville and his family and friends. But yeah, he definitely shared some information from that area, and yeah, he will be missed. And yeah, so there is stuff going on there. We hear about it from other sources as well. Some of it is far out, and it makes you wonder. And we also know that I believe it's the DNR that is really involved with the Bigfoot out that way, right? They're pretty open to the whole
Yes.
Bigfoot subject,
Yeah.
and which I think is pretty cool. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, um, no, it's interesting one that when they put the ranger station up, that's the big tale for the area is that apparently one of these creatures came out and went to terrified the rangers there in the station one night, and that story got out, and so
Mm.
I find that really interesting. The naturalist down there, whose name I don't know off the top of my head, he's pretty well involved in that area. And then I am aware of some of the stories and some of the sightings, um, some of the people that go down there, and some of the items that they've had. Um, I've seen there's a gentleman by the name of Dave Wycliffe who's got a casting. I've talked to him a good bit about it. Also have a good friend who, both him and his buddies had sightings down there that he's told me about. And, I find those very interesting. Um, so yeah, there's, it does appear like there seem like there might be something going on there.
Yeah, yeah,
But you go down, I think that's Route 22, and it's really kind of weird because Salt Fork's nestled in between two major highways, and then you have like a secondary highway that connects a county or Route 22. But Route 22, I believe, has a lot of sightings on it.
that's interesting. And Aunt
So,
Edna in the chat was asking, was the head shape like a man or typical Bigfoot shaped head? And I believe he mentioned he called it the coconut head, but it was more like a egg shaped. He said so.
mhm.
Yeah.
it
What?
looked it looked it, it looked more, like an egg, or maybe even not quite like a pear, but it was definitely oval, and I could see the hair structure on it. Um, so um, and it's always one of those questions. Okay, did I really see that? Did that just happen? And like I said, at the moment, I'm standing there looking back at um, both Mrs. T and her friend Jen. Like, well, they're all bright red. Why wasn't that bright red? And I do have just a little bit of a heat signature and footage there from something behind the tree, but I not enough to really make it out.
Yeah. And when you mentioned the hot the hot red, is it hot white and then it has like the red kind of, I guess maybe like some reddish in there, maybe the outlining and
No,
stuff. Is that how it shows, or is it completely red on your unit?
it is. It wasn't completely red. I've got the 385 sensor,
Okay.
so it was all white. And like I said, you can see the hair structure. Now,
Mm.
I don't know if you're gonna when we get to it or whatever, but 2024, what I saw in 2024 in another state, that's a match.
Wow.
So, um,
Interesting.
so that was well in 2024. Like I said, I, I, I don't think. Well, for one, let me backtrack here for a second because I'm getting kind of about the subject. But um, to me, these things don't seem to pop red on thermal. They show up. They have a more of a red or just the natural kind of white hot to them. It's slightly hot. they seem that I have reason to believe that there's some kind of thermal feature to their hair, to their clothing that keeps the heat in, or they're just rusting, one of the two. And the coconut looked very similar to 2024, and it looked um, similar to um, something else in 2024.
That's interesting. And
So, I mean,
what else comes to mind with the thermal and what you're explaining there, and it has crossed my mind before, if for some reason these beings, or whatever you'd like to call them, creatures, could they like somehow
mhm,
regulate their heat, like you said, maybe through their hair or fur. I know people have talked about like even their hairs possibly being able to make them, people brought up the whole predator effect, the cloaking and all that, which I don't know, I've seen some interesting footage, but I don't know that they could do that, but I do keep that in my notes. Um, yeah, so maybe they're able to somehow maybe regulate their heat to where they don't show up like we usually do on
well,
thermal.
actually, so I've got this planned to come out, but I think we're putting faith in our equipment. Um, so, like I mentioned before, I'm a deer hunter, right? Well, I'm sitting in a tree and I'm looking at a deer, and she's not popping on thermal. So her fur is maintaining ambient temperature. Okay. She's just creeping through the woods. It's the peak of the rut. And I'm seeing this, and I'm looking at through the thermal, looking at her, and I'm like, what's going on here? So I did start doing some research with AGM, which is what I use, is the AGM. And yeah, it's very possible, because that's the whole thing behind fur and hair, is to reach that state of ambient temperature. And so when your thermal clicks and recalibrates, what, once every minute, um, it's trying to find that average of a thermal, or average ambient temperature. And it's possible that animals can be below it. And that an AGM had on their website confirmed that. Google, what's the Google AI? It confirmed
Uh,
that as well, that that's a very real possibility.
okay.
So I did chase that down. So I think that it's very possible that, you know, the basics of it is that in order for things to really pop on thermal, they have to be expelling heat, or you have to have a very large sensor that can pick up and differentiate to that degree, or using a different type of thermal that does ranges. So the AGMs that I use, you do have a possibility of not picking up an animal because their outer skin or their outer fur is at ambient temperature.
Interesting. And we have Jonathan up in the chat, Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks. Good evening to you, sir. And hopefully, we mentioned you earlier, brother, and we know we've
Mhm.
been talking about having you on, and hopefully you'll be on next, man. It'd be great to have you on here. And yeah, so tonight we got Finding the Trackway with us, sharing some of his insight into this whole phenomenon. And so yeah, we're getting blessed with his time and energy, and we want to thank you for that. And yeah, so another thing, since you're talking about thermals, I'll name him
Mhm.
Mr. 411. I'm sure you know who that is. Had a recent presentation where he had this guest who is, I believe, maybe like, I don't know, he's a techie dude, and he was talking about having some thermal units. I don't know exactly what units, but he was talking about altering them, and I think he explained what he kind of did to them, and they were very expensive units. And what he was saying is that they were capturing weird UFO UAP phenomenon, on the altered
Mm.
units that
Mhm.
he was using, but they weren't showing up on the regular thermal units. So I found that pretty interesting, and maybe it could be something like that as well, where the unit is maybe not picking up certain things. I know Juliana in the chat just shared a interesting comment
Mhm.
earlier. And she says, torpor, a temporary reduction of metabolic rate, lowering body heat closer to ambient levels. And yeah, have you heard of anything like that? People altering certain units, or maybe certain things not popping up in regular thermal units?
Um, Now, for the most part, haven't heard anybody else really saying that much about it. I do have a video that, um, uh, what I do if I find something suspect, a lot of times I'll take the temperature of the video down and turn it blue. You know what I'm talking about? Where you take the temperature down to cold
Okay, not
and
really.
start looking at it because you get more detail doing it.
Okay, yeah, not really, but I get what you mean.
It's okay. So when I did that once on an image and one of the thermals I got, I found a second image and then maybe a third. And that made me question, okay, is there something else there? And, hopefully I'll get around to addressing that sometime soon because it's interesting. I, I've kind of been staring at it for quite a while, but I just haven't really acted on it yet.
Right on. Um, yeah, I mentioned UAP UFOs with these showing up on these thermal
Mm,
units, and I
I'm sorry.
okay, you back?
I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of got lost on a tangent there for a second. So a
Uh-huh.
couple guys out of West down south in West Virginia on the larger sensors because we have the 285 and the 385, right? Um, the 285 doesn't pick it up, but the 385 occasionally, if you look it up at the sky, you will pick up things that you wouldn't see on the 285, and I
Okay.
have seen that. Um, so um, still trying, work towards capturing that sometime.
Yeah, and that's cool that you're able, I guess, so you have a few units that you're able to do comparisons and stuff.
Yeah. I once we got well, what happened was once I got my thermal, we would go out, and of course Mrs. T would be with me, and then she'd want to see a thermal, and you're sitting there going, I want it back. I want to look through it. I
Yeah.
can't see anything. So I broke down real quick and got her own. So
Cool.
so that way we both have thermals. So that we don't have to share when we're out.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's why we have two different ones.
nice. And I've recently upgraded to AGM, their
Mhm.
line of products, and I'm pretty happy with it. I was stuck with a FLIR for a long time, and it's a good starter, the FLIR Scout, and I actually had a couple of them, and finally was able to upgrade to AGM, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. And we have captured something interesting actually locally here in the mountains. I've brought that up a whole lot, and I'll be
Mhm.
sending you that footage just so you could take a look at and see for yourself. I'll give you the whole backstory behind it, and yeah, those gadgets come in handy, especially for and you could use the thermals. Don't forget, folks. I guess all thermals, right? You could use them during the daytime.
She's she's heading out right now. So
Oh, right on. Hopefully,
um
she comes back with some goods.
yeah. What?
And hopefully we could have her on one of these live streams, man. Have both of you on. I had no
Yeah,
idea.
that would be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
well,
you two might make my power couple list of squatchers out there.
right now mom's health has been a bit of a question, so I've been taking care of
Oh wow.
mom.
Okay.
And she's also unfortunately, her mom too has also had some things, and that's why we were sidelined in 2025.
Gotcha. We'll be keeping moms in our prayers and sending some healing vibes. Everybody in the chat, I'm sure everybody in the chat loves to do stuff like that. So we'll be sending some good vibes and some healing vibes and keeping moms in our prayers.
Very important people.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, and super cool that they have you there to help out as well. So super cool on you too. And yeah, thank you again for sharing some time and energy with us and some knowledge. And going back, so I was mentioning the UAPs, UFOs with
Mhm.
the thermal units not showing up and stuff, which is gonna pushed me back up into the whole Ohio flap situation. And we were talking
Oh
about
yeah,
yeah, the meteors that had popped up at,
yeah,
during that situation, and then also possibly some UFO activity. I heard about a particular case. I believe it might have been from the late 60s of a
yep,
couple of sheriffs that had a sighting. And I think also Alex Pedikov was actually there the month before, if I'm not mistaken, out in that area covering some of that case for STM. And then the flap happened,
mhm.
and so Ohio's been lit up since. It feels like. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but everyone kind of knows about Ohio right now and the Bigfoot activity. So is there a UFO? And we know about Ohio having UFO activity. Now, is there any like where the flap has happened? Do you know
Mhm.
of any UFO activity in those areas?
As of right now, I do not. But the flap and the route that you're talking about, which is the chase across Ohio, which occurred in 1966, they're both going down the same path towards. They appear to be going down the same path towards Pittsburgh and possibly the Chestnut Laurel Ridge area.
Mm,
So in 1966, you had a rash of UFO activity. Now, I'm aware of it. I don't chase. I don't really go into UAPs and UFOs very much,
mhm.
but and also because it's local. But it started, I believe, in Michigan in '66, and then you had the chase across Ohio, which happened a month or two later, and that involved two sheriff's deputies. It started, I believe, in Randolph, and they went due north, went across Route 5, and came down, I believe, Route 14. And they chased something slightly above ground all the way to almost into Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Whoa.
So they went, oh, yeah, somewhere around 100 miles that night chasing these things. And if you've ever seen the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there's a scene in there where they got a highway and all of a sudden two UFOs go down and a bunch of sheriff cars are chasing it.
Okay.
That was the inspiration for it. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, the flap seems to be moving in that direction. It's also moving down towards. When you look at the map, if the flap is real, and there's something I have to point out. There's two theater schools in the area. Okay.
Okay.
Um, but if the flap is going right down along that same route, and in that route, you've got Minerva, which um, the Minerva monster incident
Of
came
course.
out of. You have, of course, farther on, you have the Laurel and Chestnut Ridges, which a lot of strange Bigfoot esque and UAP type activity has happened there.
Yes.
Although, one thing that's usually missed on that is that the descriptions of the creatures, while they were Bigfoot like, they were Bigfoot like. They weren't Bigfoot. The
Okay.
prints were reportedly different, and these things were described as being tall and lanky. Um,
Mm,
and then, the other part of it is, of course, it does go down towards Salt Fork.
interesting.
So, There's
And I believe,
a bit
excuse
of,
me.
yeah, a bit of interest there. Yeah.
Yeah, is it Stan Gordon, if I'm not mistaken, that covered Chestnut Ridge and all that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting. Really fascinating stuff. If anyone is interested in the high strangeness and creatures like he just described, yeah, you could check out Stan Gordon's work. I know he's been featured in a lot of documentaries and it's done a lot of extensive work for years. So definitely old school investigator, researcher, and yeah, interesting stuff. So yeah, that so the creatures look tall, lanky, and Bigfoot like, you say. So that's something to take note of. And
Yeah.
because we've heard of
Yeah.
other incidences like that where creatures are described either coming out of yeah, either UFOs, UAPs, or some people describe portals or something like that. But there was the what is it, the Kentucky Hopkinsville goblins situation, and then also a year before that in Caracas,
Yeah.
Venezuela, there was a similar case, just like the Hopkinsville goblins, where they described these small, short, hairy dwarves that came out of some sort of UFO and stuff. I thought that was pretty interesting. But anyway, yeah, thank you for sharing that. You know, and I always thought that like, oh, finding the trackway, he does not get into the weird and the strange, but getting to know you, man. Wow, this is super cool.
I mean, like I said, you, you got to follow what the evidence takes you. You can't go out there with anything preconceived, as far as I'm concerned. And maybe you will find something, walk right into a portal. Maybe you see something, walk right into a UFO, or who knows? You can't do this. In my mind, you can't do anything preconceived out here.
Right on.
So,
And there's a saying that Thomas Steenberg. So you said you've been out with Thomas. There's a saying that he uses. I don't know if you remember it, but stick to the facts and never deviate. I think it is something like that.
yep,
I
yeah.
love it.
Tom Thomas is a tough individual for his age. Had a good time with Thomas and Nikki and Brent out in British Columbia.
Oh
I
wow,
will say that I think I don't know what kind of car Thomas drives, but I will say that it was the most comfortable ride. I fell asleep in the back of that car during that drive.
nice.
Um, but Thomas took us to the Chapman residence, and we went to. Are you familiar with the story of Jacko?
Yes,
We went to the Jacko area,
nice.
which was it was. Um, I said, Thomas is he's tough, man. It's funny though. We was going down this railroad track, and he's like, well, we got to get across this bridge pretty quick. If a train comes, we're in trouble. Just kind of like looking at each other, like, okay, let's go. So we went down the railroad tracks down to where Thomas had figured out where the Jacko incident had occurred, and I shot some video down there with Brent and Nikki, and then we came back, and that was very, learned quite a bit about that. Learned quite a bit about Thomas's museum that he has there, and
What?
in this, what is that called? Yeah, Harrison Hot Springs. In Harrison Hot
Yes.
Springs, he's got a very nice little museum there that I got to actually see Thomas talk about the subject to kids, which was awesome. I mean, you could see the light in his eyes, and the presence that he brings, and how the kids were looking up to him. And I got very fortunate to see that firsthand. Um, so I did get to spend a little bit of time with Thomas, one day or so. And, who else did I get to meet on that? Got to meet Jerry from the Buck Walls crew, and Mike. What's Mike's name? Oh, shoot. The Howler. Got
Okay.
to meet Howler out there. So,
Nice.
and so, I mean, that was a good trip. Thomas is a great guy.
Yeah, and I got some Thomas Steenberg stories myself because I got to hang with him last year over at Bluff Creek, and he came down with Brent, and yeah, I was blessed with his presence and his time and his energy and his knowledge, and it
Hmm.
was just, yeah, man, epic moment. And so yeah, man, I've gotten to know Thomas, and yeah, we've become friends, and yeah, I hope to see him again soon. And I bet, man, y'all had a good time. Yeah, good times
Oh,
with
it was
Thomas.
awesome.
Yes, learned a lot, and yeah, hopefully one day he could jump on here with me and us also. Hopefully we could do this more often, build, and you're welcome anytime. Um Also, yeah, there was, what else did I want to bring up? So Thomas, and then there was so with Nikki and the gang and Brent and all them, is that where the tree falling situation happened, or was that in Washington? I remember something happened where a
Um,
tree fell, and I know several of them were there and
I
experienced
believe,
that.
I believe that happened um, the year before when they went to Mount Hood, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah, Jonathan, when we went to British Columbia, Jonathan was supposed to join us, and he had some issues there, and so Brent sent him out in the middle of nowhere by himself. But Jonathan just went. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going," and he just goes.
Oh, wow.
So we spent a little bit of time there, and then Brent was like, he's out by himself. I'm like, yeah. It's like it's probably not the best thing to be in. Yeah, he's out in bear and cougar country by himself. Yeah, and he's from the Northeast. You got a point. We should probably go join him. I'm like, yep. So Brent and I traveled back across the. Um, we traveled back into the Cascades and chased Jonathan down, and we got to spend a couple of days with him, and in that way too, Jonathan got to meet somebody. Gets He lives in New York. He got to spend a bit of time with Brent, got to meet Brent, and then got to um, immerse himself in the Cascades, which he did. And as far I'm assuming Jonathan had a great time. I had a great time with Jonathan, and you know, we had, like I said, both areas. We had some interesting material. So,
Right on. Yeah, and so yeah, so you feel Washington gets a lot of reports and stuff. So you've been to Washington as well?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so how was your experiences there? Do you feel that yeah, there is maybe a lot more of these beings out that way? Um what is it about Washington that gets so much activity or reports, do you think it is, or is it happening, or is it,
Well, originally, what I thought was that what was going on out west and what was going on in the east was separate. Two different things. Um, I mean, definitely. I mean, you still have the ecology out there. You still have the rainforest um, out there, as opposed to some of the rainforests out east here. A lot of them have been really um, hit pretty hard, but I think a lot of it has to do with that ecology part of it. Um, where we was at, uh, I have reason to believe there was something there, and I have reason to believe there was more than one. Um, and to be honest with you, I don't know why I felt that way. It's so much. It just seems more real out west. You know what I mean? When you're out west,
yeah,
it's like, oh yeah, this is real. This can happen.
yeah,
Or when you're out east, it's like that's somebody's backyard, and you can hear a highway. Um, we spent quite a bit of time at another sighting area, and there's a highway there constantly in the east in New York. actually two different spots where you could hear the highway. And but there was sightings and uh, another sighting. So you're standing there and you're listening to all this background noise. Like you can hear the highway right now, I imagine, behind me. And you're like, how can anything like that be around this much
Yeah,
noise on the highway? When you're out west, it's like, oh, it makes absolute sense that there'd be something out here. It's
yeah,
quiet and it's all kinds of land.
yeah. It's interesting that
So,
because I wonder, and
oh, I'm not sure if I froze or you froze.
but yeah, I have traveled across. I drove across the country once, and so I got to see briefly several states and the different terrains and there
Mhm.
were certain areas out east where I just felt like, oh yeah, and at the time I wasn't into it, but now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I could put myself there again, and I could see where in certain places there would be, you know, these things, and yeah, so I see the potential definitely in other
Mhm.
places, and I do believe it's happening. Um, and but it seems like if you look at databases, it seems like the East Coast is riddled with a lot more reports than out west, even if you believe those reports. Now, databases, do you look at any? You do check out BFRO or the mapping project, the Bigfoot mapping project, or anything like that?
Not so much. I'm aware of them. Usually, kind of if working the area that or areas that I have, I either am going off of my own personal experience, or I'm talking with the gentleman that we know through Salt Fork and stuff. Talking with him about that as far as the local areas, and then if we go into an area that something has happened, um, I'll look them up if I think about it. So, but I haven't been on um, the mapping project that much. We are heading to West Virginia next weekend. Now, um, Central Florida, I'm still calling them Florida, Central Kentucky Bigfoot. That was the first thing he did was go to where to the campsites down there, and he brought up the Bigfoot mapping project and started, um, you know, started doing a reconnaissance on that area, and he was pretty excited. The one part, like in New York, um, where there's been a couple sightings, I don't think that's either one of them's on the mapping project. And you know what, too, West Virginia, where I feel, and you talked to Alex Pedikov, I think we're both in agreement that the one place where there's a ton of sightings that don't get reported is out of West Virginia. For whatever reason, to me, West Virginia is probably the squatchiest state uh,
Wow.
by far.
Wow. And just because of what you've heard or you've experienced stuff there yourself. I actually stayed in Virginia. So I know it's two different states.
Mhm.
Actually, when I went out east, I stayed in Virginia. So I got to spend a month there, but yeah, didn't I don't think I went through West Virginia. But yeah, wow, that blows my mind that you say that. And maybe you could give us a little more
Mhm.
insight on why you would say that. And you don't have
Uh,
to know the whole
well,
cover,
just the amount. It, well, there's yeah, I've talked about it before, but um, we went down to investigate an area that you had to drive up a dry lake bed, or not lake bed, a dry stream bed to get back to. You had to go down in the creek bed, drive all the way back to get back to this place. And once you got back there, if it rained, you weren't leaving. If it rained even a little bit, you weren't going anywhere. If it snowed, you weren't going. You were stuck there. I don't even to this day can't figure out how they built the place back in there.
Wow.
But when that is where Mrs. T and her friend Angie was up on one ridge, and um, BF Bud and I was up on the other ridge, and he had gotten hit in the chest. Uh, Not in this particular trip, but in the same spot. I got nailed in the back by something that night. And it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me because nothing was dropping. We're on the top of a ridge. There's nothing to ricochet. I just got blasted under the shoulder blade or underneath the shoulder blade.
Oh,
And we did bring back uh, some items of interest that, particularly I have a trail cam photo that I after I found it, um, I really wish I could go back and take another look at the area. But there's been at this particular spot, um, there was a track within a track that was um, captured by the owner. So he had fresh plowed behind the house that was on the property, and there was a large footprint with a much smaller footprint in it that he took a picture of. Um, it's several odd sounds in the area that we recorded, and probably I would say that particular spot that I found very interesting um, is that I had a uh, trail camera, an I-40 multi trail camera that I had set up, and I just came back from changing batteries out in the camcorder. I sat down and we're talking to each other, and I look up on the hill, and I'm like, "Hey, don't turn your head and look at it. Look through out of your eye and tell me, is that a silhouette?" And it kind of looked that way. So Jen said, "Well, I forget what she said. Jen was with us, but she said there was only one way to find out. You got to go up there." And I'm like, "Okay, hold my beer. Here I go." And climbing up the side of that hill to get up there. Now, when I got up there, and I'm talking about all fours. I mean, we got 4-wheel drive. I'm digging in the dirt to get up the side of this thing. And I get up there and I get so far up above the house, and then I started finding stuff that didn't make sense because at the time it felt like I pushed something out. But what was more weird is when I got up there and I started looking around, I'm like, this looks like a blind. It looks like something had brought in vegetation there specifically above the house that was overwatching the house. I thought, yeah. And of course, when I climbed up there, I forgot I didn't take a phone or anything with me. I just was yelling back and forth and then trying to figure out how to get down the side of this thing without killing myself. But that was, and I've always wondered if when I went up the side of that hill, if I pushed this out and pushed it right across that trail camera, and that's why that trail camera took that photo. And unfortunately, I said the property changed hands, and I can't go back to look to see what exactly it is. You know what I mean? But
darn.
I'd seen that was where I heard my first whoop. Um, in fact, how'd that go? Me and the wife were sitting on the one ridge, and um, our friends Bud, Angie, and Jen was over on the other side. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm rendering a 3D scan because we had found something that looked like a print. And so I was doing a 3D scan. I was sitting there running it through, waiting for it to upload, bring back the 3D scan. And then clear out of the blue, right there in the middle of the day, it was, whoop, what the heck? And so I'm getting on the radio. I'm like, did you guys whoop? And, of course, they can't understand what I'm saying. I'm like, did you whoop? Did you whoop? And meanwhile, Mrs. T standing there like, what's wrong? Did you hear that? I'm like, no. I'm like, that was loud. And that was the first time I'd heard one there. So you had that, you had the casting, and then you had the story of the place. And the story of the place was really interesting because you had your trifecta of stuff. You had your haunting stuff, you had your Bigfoot stuff. Um, Caretaker left, and when he left all his stuff. He had left all his fishing gear. He left all of his everything. He just left. And the owner was like, for whatever reason, that guy had lights all around the place out in the yard. It never really got a good story out of that, but that was just something really interesting. Either the guy, being back there in the woods, just got himself to a point where he was freaked out, or something truly was happening there. But
Hmm.
it does seem like something was going on there, and there's a lot more stories out of that particular area, and uh, yeah, it
Yeah.
just
If
yeah,
you're excuse me, if you're leaving fishing gear behind, something's up.
he left it all. He would not. There was an upstairs to that house. He would not sleep in any room other than the living room, and yeah, he just packed up and he left. He didn't take anything with him. Didn't he? Just for whatever reason. And then just some of the stories of the place was like was pretty interesting. Definitely, for lack of a better for that's that's being nice about it. Just we wouldn't stay in the house. We would sleep out in the yard, but nobody would go into the house most of the time. But as far as like the Bigfoot activity and stuff going on there, it was like, man, it seems like there is something seriously going on here. But unfortunately, um, that place was lost. So we haven't heard anything out of the new owners or anything about it or anything. So
Interesting. And thank you for sharing that. And so you're saying you're going back to that state here possibly soon. Now, on your way, is it going to be to take care of other business? And if so, are you going to be able to maybe stop in some of your areas that you normally do out that way?
well, what we're doing, we're going down West Virginia. We're going to meet our friends. We're going to meet Matt Larson,
Okay.
our friend Max Powers, Jen, and our friends from Joe Purdue and uh, Ron Lingham from Wild and
Right.
Weird, West Virginia. And
Oh
we're going to
yeah.
spend a little bit of time with them. And then um, our time that we're going to do is when we come back, um, yeah, when we head back up Sunday, we're going to go through Salt Fork, and then we're going to prep for an excursion somewhere in Ohio here shortly after that. So we'll be spending. Our plans is to go out and spend a week out there and see if we can find anything.
Awesome. Well,
So we've got.
yeah, hopefully you keep us updated with any happenings on these travels. And you mentioned
Mhm.
what is it? Wild and Weird West Virginia, right? I believe is the channel. And
Yep.
the guys from that channel, and
Yep.
they've done a lot of work with STM, with Small Town Monsters, and I love their channel, and
Yep.
love the work that they're doing. They get into the far out stuff. They love gadgets as well, and they bring you the
Hmm.
evidence. They bring you the videos and stuff to look at. Something they bring you something back, and which is always good. And I like their view of things, and I really like what they're doing over there. So that's super cool that you're gonna meet up with them and spend some time, and I'm sure something will get weird with those guys. So good luck, and
Well,
yeah.
Well, they certainly, some of the stuff that they got, that thermal video that they have is just um, super interesting. Real quickly, um, we had just left, I think we had just left the corridor and with Matt Larson and company. And then that journalist had, um, there's two journalists, they had their interaction with something which those guys were kind of freaked out about. And then, we got up to meet uh, the Wild Word guys, and they had a journalist with them. Okay, so and we all got on the topic of this particular mumble in the woods. And I'm sitting there as they're talking about this stuff. Ron and Joe's talking about it, and then their reporter friend stands up and she's like, "Yeah, I was there," and blah blah. And they start talking about it as well. That this particular type mumbling, this conversation type piece, was going on in the woods, and it's kind of like, what's the chances of this happening? And they were telling the story because their cameraman did not catch it. Um, he had turned off the camera. They all turned to him like, "Tell me you caught that." While we was in the corridor, and I don't think it was just the two journalists that was with us. It was also um, Max and uh, Ryan and Chewy go hiking. Max Powers, Bigfoot hunter. They had talked about hearing this mumbling too, and then we got on the topic there and the campground, because one of the things that happened back in the 90s that I never really understood was the fact that I was out hunting, looking up this valley, and all of a sudden this tree just starts shaking. And for lack of a better word, it sounded like Dad got mad at the kids. It's just like, "Oh, get there, oh, get there." But I never could figure out what it was. I never saw it. It never came out. It just, and it was, Max had talked me into doing an imitation of it. I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Arr, arr, arr," and then the voices that replied back were much higher in pitch. They were like,
Wow.
"What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I never did figure that out. Now, years later, now Max had asked me, could I make that sound while we were saying? I'm like, "Yeah," and I made it. And he goes, then because I'm talking to Max, and he looks at me and goes, "Look at Brian." And I turned and looked at Brian. Brian's just like flabbergasted. He's like, "That's exactly what we heard out there in that corridor that night." And those reporters, and Joe and Ron, reported the exact same sound. And I'm sitting there thinking, what's the chances of this happening? Three different groups of people have all heard basically the same thing. And I said, that was back in the 90s when I experienced it. And then the corridor was in 24, and then we met them in 24.
And really quick, how long have you been doing this?
The well, as a outdoorsman and everything, I've been doing this basically since I was 5, 6 years old. I've been out in the woods in some form or another, and I've done it. Also, been out in the woods for professional reasons, and then I started searching. Um, I would say 29 October 22 was the start of the search, because that was after that night. It was like, what's going on? There's something going on. I need to know what this is that's going on. And um, you know, uh, ever since then, I just trying to figure out exactly what it was. I want to know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
particular day, I can't say I saw a big hairy guy. I saw
yeah.
something. I don't know what the heck it was.
Yeah. And so how'd you geek out on it? Like did you go and to the library and start getting books maybe, or was were you able to were you online at the time, or maybe a few years later, maybe started diving online, or did you maybe start asking locals? Was there some sort of outlet for you to find more information on all this?
Well, I had been always kind of interested in the subject, but then at that period of time, I started um, meeting people like Nikki through the channel and started exploring what the, has anybody else seen this stuff or experienced this stuff? And so that's when I ran into Nikki, Joe Schneider, um, Matt Larson, Jonathan. And from there, it just kind of kept growing, um, needing to know, what was that? Um, you know, because for me, it's it's not been a journey to prove anything to anybody other than myself that what happened happened. You know, I saw what I saw. I need confirmation that that was real. And it's- yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah,
So I needed to.
I feel you
I
on
just
that.
needed to know.
Yeah, interesting. I feel you on that. And I believe Joe Snyder unfortunately passed away as well, right? I believe it was last year or a year or two ago. Is that the Joe you were mentioning?
Yeah, Joe passed away. It's been a couple years now.
Yeah. Condolences
Uh,
to Joe's family and
Jen
friends.
and I went. We got to meet him um, slightly before he passed away, and um, it's also when we met Steve Coles and company and a lot of them.
Yeah, very cool. Um,
So
Yeah, I was gonna mention you mentioned Steve Cole's the Squatch detective, and yeah, I was hanging out over in his chat the other night and been sharing his live streams. As I've been calling it Bigfoot Mania 2026. A lot going on in the Bigfoot arena. You have the big uh battle right now, it seems like, between people and whether or not the PG film is true or not. And we don't even have to talk about that. It's been good. We haven't even mentioned any. We're getting to an hour and a
no,
half here, and we haven't even mentioned any of that stuff, which is kind of good. But if there's any of that you'd like to share or get off your chest, feel free. But yeah,
well,
uh-huh.
when it comes to what I saw that night wasn't Patty. What I saw in another place wasn't Patty. So really, um, Patty seems kind of immaterial to me. I will say that I feel it's going to have an impact, but and it does. It will make you question because if you've seen things at Patty, that makes you want to question: did I really see things I did out in the field? But the reality of it is, Patty doesn't. I didn't see Patty.
Hmm.
You know, she wasn't there. It wasn't 1966. It was 2022. It was 2024. So yeah, um, I don't think. I think Patty's going to have a negative impact as far as people that are looking for funding to help find them their answers. I think it's going to have a negative impact as far as getting uh, solid backing or scientific backing or however you want to say it. Again, it depends upon your scope. If you're, my scope is to prove to myself that what happened happened. Somebody other scope might be to prove to science that it's out there, and that if Patty truly falls, it may be very difficult for somebody whose scope is after that, or somebody seeking monetary support, because it's not cheap. That these trips, the gear,
Hmm.
the flights, the gas, the food, that's all been out of pocket. And now it's not because, for me, it's not because I was a fanboy of Patty. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's because there's something out there, and I want the answers. That I really did what happened happen.
Yeah. And so about this new documentary, are you looking forward to checking that out? How do you feel about that? Since we're on this
Um,
topic now.
yeah, I'll check it out, but it's the same thing. I'm pretty. There's two sides. When you take like the Bigfoot coin, the crypt coin, or whatever you want to call it, you've got the side that supports truth, and then you got the side that doesn't. That supports it doesn't exist. Now, unfortunately, the side that supports that it does exist, usually gets covered up by a hoax or two. But you know, there's money on that coin to be made on either side. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So on one side, you've got somebody wanting to, uh, because on one side, somebody's wanting to show you a dead Bigfoot in the freezer, right? And on the other side, somebody wants you to pay $25 to buy his book, telling you how that Bigfoot ended up. How that's a fake Bigfoot in the freezer. So, I kind of stay away from that stuff, man. I just kind of like,
Right on.
I don't really want to get too wrapped up in that. And,
I feel you. Yep.
you know,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
guys go do your thing. Uh,
Uh-huh. And I bring it up just because it's a hot topic right now, and it's always good to hear, others thoughts. And so yeah. Um Also, let's see. So Ohio, the Bigfoot conference coming up. Uh so this other possible flap going on in Ontario. So it's like pretty much like one of the Great Lakes.
mhm,
Is it Lake Erie that pretty much separates the two land masses there, I guess you could
yes,
say? And do you think that there could
yes.
be any correlation between what may be going on up there and the Ohio stuff a little below there? Because there's been some reports also added to the mapping project and possibly the BFRO, and I believe last year coming out of Michigan also, which is I believe right above you guys also.
hmm So Michigan's off to our west and then up. And Michigan itself, all kinds of stuff out of Michigan. Michigan is an amazing state to go in. It's also um, a very rugged state, as far as um, that part. When I started looking at the flap, and one of the first areas was Manawa, where the sighting was originated. So my first correlation was to see, is there any passage between I believe it's the Cuyahoga National Forest and Manua. Is there any way that something can get from um, the Cuyahoga National Forest over to Manawa and then start working its way down this way? Yeah, it possibly a little bit. So if you're not familiar with that particular story, and I don't know the gentleman's name, but there's a story out of the Cuyahoga National Valley or National Forest, um, Cuyahoga Valley, where the gentleman was back from the military, and he was down in the bottom of the riverbed, and something come up out of the water and scared him and his friends. Okay, and I'm not certain of the gentleman's name, but I know Amy Boo talked about him. So I was interested in finding out, is there any way that something could come up out of the valley and go over to Manoa, and then start working its way down to there, because that would be like an avenue. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah.
or could it be something coming straight down, from the outskirts of Cleveland, out of lake area? Is that a possibility?
Mm.
And yeah, unfortunately, I haven't found an answer for either one, but it is interesting that, Lake Erie does appear to be I'm not sure if it's a nexus or an origin point. And when you start following the lines back, um, I don't know why that would be, or if it's just because you have such a huge population density. So when you go up to Cleveland, you've got a lot larger human population density. When you get down to Manual, it starts spreading out, and then you really start spreading out as far as Ohio is concerned, as you're coming more down this way. When you go from, say, Lake Erie into Ontario, you got to get around this thing called Toronto, and Toronto is huge, and which, and it's growing. But I suppose it's a possibility if you went to the west of Toronto or the Lake of the Woods, came around from that direction. I'm not certain, but you do have large swaths of um, forested area up there in Canada. And really, once you get out of the urban area of Toronto, which goes all the way to Colborne, if you start driving like 15 minutes north and away from the lake or away from Toronto, you get in the wilderness fast. So, I mean, maybe, I mean, it's quite possible. There's some obstructions there, but yeah, but there's also one other thing too, is there's a lot of caverns under that lake. And that's something people don't realize, that underneath Lake Erie, there's gigantic salt mines. I
Wow.
don't know how those guys do that. Um, so they got all that water above their head, and they're down there underneath of it mining.
That is
And I think that
wow.
goes all the way around the lake.
Okay. Yeah, because I was
So
gonna be
maybe,
yeah, they're traveling underground somehow.
possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask next, because that does come up, the caverns, if with certain areas, is there any caverns, any underground systems of some sort that they could be using? And I do think it's possible in certain areas. And yeah, that's a trip there. And we got, let's see, Jonathan with a comment here says, many of you may know John Ayers. John may still be used to work in the salt mines below the Great Lakes. Geologists have documented the hard layers of salt rock that the Great Lakes rest upon. So
Mhm.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'll be looking into that more. And yeah, man,
Now
I uh-huh. Go ahead.
that is true. The geology coming along that area, at least in Ohio, is very. There is a lot of underground caving systems that come that way. In fact,
Mm.
where I'm sitting right now, we know there's an underground caving system where I'm sitting at right now.
Wow.
So, and there's parts of the city, well, the north part of the city in particular, where they're concerned about homes falling down into the caverns underneath them.
Oh man,
So when
that's
we've
important.
had, and that's another thing too. That's another oddity, is that outside of Salt Fork, there on Route 70, 70, um, about 10 years back, one of the caverns underneath it failed, and Route 70 fell into the cavern.
Whoa.
So, so there's this whole Northeast Ohio part. There's caverns all over the place.
Yeah, and it seems like, yeah, that's we're learning more and more places, even here in so I'm in Los Angeles right now. And here we're learning more and more about the underground of LA, and there was already like infrastructure down there, and who knows some of these other passages that people are finding. But there is a network of stuff going on under these big cities as well, and not to mention places like you're talking about now. So that's something. I'll be putting in my notes uh here tonight. And yeah, man, interesting stuff, man. And we're gonna have to have you come back and bless us again with some of this knowledge you got going on. And now, is there anything you're doing in specific that you'd like to share? Maybe like some techniques, some new things. A lot of us like to keep stuff hush hush. Some of us do like to share certain things. Is there anything you could share with us? Maybe anything that you'd also like to share for anyone starting out with this? Maybe some few tips that you could think of.
I would say probably the two biggest ones. Number one, um, record your video in depth and record your audio in depth, because you're going to learn a lot more comparing the same audio from different sources. You're going to learn a lot more. And if you do find something of substance, when you've got multiple cameras that hit it, you're going to win your argumentation. Um, so that is probably the biggest one there. When I go out, um, the thermal's on. I got a camera running parallel with it. I might have a designated camera after our trip to Washington running parallel with a thermal. And at minimum, at a minimum, at least two audio, two video sources, recorders. And then the number one and probably the biggest one, and there's no two ways about it. Get the camera up on the head. You don't address things with your hands. You don't address things with your torso. When you hear something, you turn your head. You look at it, you assess it with your eyes and your ears. Okay, the only way that, if something happens to your left or right, we were expecting something to be out in front of us, always happens to your left and right. You got to get the thing that assesses the stressor into the game. So yeah, get a camera up there, and more the more eyes and ears you got, the better off you are.
Definitely. And for folks that don't know, there's actual, like, so you're talking about like getting there's straps and stuff. I actually have one too, but due to my
Mhm.
hair, I have trouble putting on certain devices and stuff. So those straps, I need a full on custom one. But even for a headlamp, it's troubling sometimes. But yeah, there's straps that you
Mhm.
can get for like a camera, GoPro type, and maybe other stuff now these days.
Yep.
But usually like a GoPro style type of camera. They got straps for that. They have
Mhm.
chest straps and different straps. I actually got a bundle pack where it came with several different types of straps. So just a heads up for anyone looking into this type of gear, you could find stuff like that. And then of course, customizing your own stuff. You could always do that as well. It might take a little time, a little effort, but you could always MacGyver something.
The the trying to think. I think it's Tim T uses the head strap for his, and then Matt uses a modified bicycle helmet he got from a thrift store,
Okay.
and so he used the glue on type thing. So he modified his. Um, I bought a cheap airsoft helmet and I modified it. Um, that I occasionally wear out there. And the nice thing about it, yeah, you look kind of silly. But you know what? I got a battery pack in the back and it runs up to the front of the camera, and I don't have to change batteries. I don't have to stop. My hands are free. I can run 4 or 5 hours of video. I've done it sitting in a tree nonstop. And where my head looks, the camera looks, and I never have to mess with it. And for if you're going out there and you're looking and you're trying to capture something, um, the less you have to mess with things and change batteries out and do stuff like that, it's the better.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
my brother recently gave me this little vest. It's like a fishing vest. So it's a bunch of pockets all over the
mhm.
place. And it's just awesome having it in the field because I'm able to carry like, everything I need. And but yeah, no, it's always good to again, like you said, the idea of having the head camera going. And yeah, I love gadgets and stuff. And yeah, important your audio, you shared a few basic things you should have out there, especially if you're going out at night. You're
Yeah,
gonna want a thermal, and do you prefer the thermal
yeah.
over night vision? How do you have a night vision? Do you use night vision? Any night ops?
Um, I do. Well, okay. I have a small little. It's called a Phasm cam. It is a full spectrum camera, and I wear that out occasionally, like if I'm wanting to capture content. Now, like I said, I've given into the fact that I'm not a videographer. I'm not a documentarian.
Hmm.
So let's stick with what you're good at and just keep with the hunting part of it. And so now, and it's kind of bad because like when I do a video or whatever, you'll see that it's just black, you know, dead screen the entire time, because you're seeing what I see and it's nothing.
Yep.
I prefer, I don't like IR out in the woods anymore. Um, I prefer using the thermal. Of course, that'll make you go night blind in one eye and give you a headache. Or the smallest amount of light that I can keep, and I have a very small little green LED light that I'll use. So, I apologize for anybody who's ever watched, a trackway video going, I can't see anything. You're seeing as much as I'm seeing, you know. Um, I, I just not a fan of IR out in the woods anymore. I think whatever's out there sees the IR. And I
Yes.
do think that in certain situations they work good. Um, I, we had a paranormal event which the IR camera caught. I'm not a big fan of it, so I don't play it. Um, those cameras are good for that, in my mind. Um, but uh, whatever we're chasing out there to woods, I believe that sees IR. I think it uses large eye technology or a large eye type of biology, like an owl's, and I think they pick up that spectrum. And for whatever reason, I think the IR is the dead giveaway.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people mention that, and I
Yeah.
think there's definitely something to it. Um, and also really quick, I also wanted to bring up what was it? Slipping my mind again. It's gonna come back to me right now. Uh Darn. There we go. But it'll come. It's downloading right now. Um, and yeah, really quick before because we're about to hit 2 hours here, which is awesome. And I feel like we can do this forever. We could go 3, 4 hours easily. And so we're gonna have to do this again. And but yeah, really quick, is there a way to like oh yeah, here we go. You mentioned your videos and them being black and explaining. Believe me, many of my
Mhm.
videos have been like that too. And I also like that you mentioned the difference. Or just the files just downloaded. Um, the difference that yeah, you're not a documentarian or a film guy, and there is a difference between the two. And I've been learning that lately. And yeah, a
Yep.
lot of my videos suck because I'm not a documentarian or a film guy. I'm just pointing a camera and trying to
Mm-mm.
do my best to capture what I'm seeing, what I'm trying to relay. And so
Yep.
yeah.
Those guys, um, my hands off that, like Alex and all them, they are, or and Eric Swanson, those guys are masters of the craft. That is an art form, that the stuff that they do.
Yep.
And that is a lot of learning and a lot of hard work and a lot of, um, you know, that is a lot of stuff. They're artists.
Yeah, we're talking
And
documentaries. Yes.
yeah, I don't have, um, I don't have the resources, and I don't have that accumulated knowledge. I mean, if
Mhm.
you've been out with Alex or Eric, um, number one, they're two of the best out there. Alex is very, very, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Dedicated, to bringing the best and only the truth to you.
Yep.
And Eric is the same way. He did a fantastic piece on the people there in the corridor, and those guys, they are they are amazing. I can't do that stuff, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so I've learned that I need to stick with what brought me to the show, and what's brought me to the show is just basic hunting
Yeah.
parameters. And my videos aren't the best, but you know, I that's what I'm going for. I'm just going, just you know, I
Yeah.
render stuff on my phone. I don't have,
Yeah. I
I
totally
don't have the
feel you.
resources.
Yeah, I totally feel you, and I'm learning because I'm diving into this stuff, and I'm like, oh man, that this is cool stuff, and I see the difference now. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a whole other different thing going on here, and I luckily got to go
Hmm.
out with Alex. I think it's a couple years ago now. Him and Jonathan Easley, and there's several of us out in Alex came out to Bluff Creek. So yeah, I got to spend some time with him, got to know him, did some squatching, and we've become friends since. And yeah, good guy for sure. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
very talented. And you're mentioning, so Eric, who is this that you're talking about? I'm not sure. Um
Oh, Eric Swanson. Eric
Eric-
Swanson does a lot
oh
of
yeah.
videos. He's not really in the Bigfoot world.
Okay.
He does a lot of, um, I guess the proper terminology might be social commentary type
Okay.
things,
Yeah, name
and
rings a
wanting to
bell.
bring stuff to people's attention. Oh,
Okay.
he does, uh, he he does fantastic videos, and he makes you think. So, and that was one of the things that Matt brought into the corridor, was somebody outside the Bigfoot world who wanted to look into it, and that's what Eric's about. And Eric's a fantastic, open-ended, objective observer, only wanting to capture, what's the real, you know.
All right. Right on.
Um, so,
Super cool. And
but
so
yeah, he's.
uh-huh.
Oh, I was just gonna say, go check out Eric's videos,
I will. And so, is
or
there
Eric's
any
work.
way is there any way we could find Finding the Trackway on YouTube or any other platforms, or how do we, is there can people reach out to you if they have questions or, anything like that? Do you, engage with people, or do you just stay low key and do your own thing?
I pretty much just run real low key. I don't do a whole lot of social media. The only thing I really have done is YouTube, and it's just, for me, it's been. I don't know. I don't really want to get too connected. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get in I worry about group thought process
Yeah.
as I'm chasing this down. But if you get a hold of through the comments, or if you want to talk to Nikki or yourself or whatever, or Steve Coles, um, I usually don't have any issues with that. It's just, for the most part, I just trying to focus on what I'm doing, and just trying to find my answers, or find, not really an answer, just try and find what the heck that was,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
so is your
Now, a lot of
uh-huh. Go ahead.
well, in the past, a lot of times I'll load stuff up on a drive, and if anybody has any questions or whatever, work it out to where, hey, here's access to it. You know, if I put something up and you want to analyze it, go for it. There you go.
Cool. Yeah.
Have a nice. And I've done that with several people. You know, I Yeah, this is what I captured. I have learned a lesson, that sometimes your perception can be. Um, I learned a lot of lessons early, that sometimes your perception and reality are not the same thing. So, case in point, I'm riding a four wheeler. I see what it looks like ahead, my body running down through the woods. I have a camera on my helmet, and it picks up something that looks interesting in the woods, and then I have a static camera, 3 cameras right there. So my eyes did not match the camera on my head, which did not match the static camera, all looking in the same spot. So, I've learned a lot of those lessons. And, if I'm wrong about something, if it's a question of it being, um, oh, it's not pareidoia. It's, yeah, I got the word paralysis stuck in my head. It's not that. It's where you have two perspectives on the same object, and they're not parallax.
Oh yeah.
If it's an issue of parallax
Hmm.
and I don't catch it, I try like crazy to catch it. That's one thing I do try to do, is try to find, there's something there, you know, find the right answer. Are we looking at parallax? Are we looking at distortion? Are we looking at this or that? And sometimes, I'll have to lead. If I do find something like that, I'll lead people to it. Hey, look, this is an issue of parallax.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have learned the hard way of that. So, and I'm not against somebody going, hey, this is what happened. This is actually what you're seeing, because I'm all about, finding, I want the answers. I don't
Yeah.
want a bunch of hogwash. I want to know.
Yeah. And I don't,
I want to know for myself, did that happen? And
yeah.
I can't run a lot of bullshit.
Yes.
I don't want that.
And I don't mind being wrong either when I'm wrong. That's I love that you do
No,
that, and yeah, that's why I like learning. And man, you got me on the parallax, because you're like, if it's not pareidolia, I was like, oh darn, what is it? But yeah, parallax. Yes, I'm familiar with that as well. And
parallax.
yes, and then yeah, I've learned too the hard way also. There's been things where I thought maybe it was something, and yeah, it could either be pareidolia or parallax. Sometimes there is weird artifacts as well in videos and stuff. Um,
Well,
so yeah, it's good to learn
yep.
that stuff. Uh-huh.
And sometimes, is you watch me long enough, you'll find out about the trackway. We did run across a very suspicious trackway, and I didn't know that much about feet. So we spent a day casting this trackway, and we did pull it up, and, and learning from the experience of what it takes to record this, to measure this, to scan it, to catch each individual single part of it, the multiple photos, the logistics of it. I mean, look, do yourself a favor, have somebody walk through some mud and then go do that, because you're going to learn so much from it. Now, in the end, what I found out, of course, is that, they looked weird. They were in mud. They were someplace where you'd never expect them to be. I have having people telling me, those are bear tracks, and what happens is this bear, this ball. I'm like, no, they're not bear tracks. I pulled the casting, cleaned them off, looked at them, push the pressure ridge of the foot shaped like a question mark. They're all human. These are all human tracks. Somebody, whatever, walked through this mud that's probably full of glass, full of fishing hooks, and full of all this stuff in their bare feet, and they sunk like 6 or 7, 8, inches down in. And, you
Mm.
know, yes, we casted a whole bunch of human tracks, but we learned so much from that experience. And then I didn't, try to hide it or anything. I brought it up and said, here's they were all human. And actually, I got to take that to Dr. Meldrum before he passed away.
Oh wow.
And I know Dr. Meldrum, and a lot of people say a lot of stuff about that, but actually, Dr. Meldrum asked to see those castings or see the videos of it.
That's
So,
cool. And
but
so
because I actually showed him something else.
okay. And I was gonna say, because yeah, did he know ahead of time that they were human, or did you try to give him the test or something, or you didn't try to sneak them in on him?
No, what it was, I got to talking to him about a hand. So somebody had shown me a cast, and so I did a 3D rendering of it, and I looked at it, and I'm like, that's a hand. That's not a foot. That's a freaking hand. And so I showed it to Dr. Meldrum and we talked about it. And then I started telling the story about how we casted all the human tracks. And that's when he asked, can I see them? And then, yeah, I showed it to him. He's like, yeah, you're right. These are all human tracks.
All right.
And, but, no, that was one thing. Um, and that is a piece that I've seen. I don't own it, but the hand, um, that has really cemented two things cemented. Um, that is, there's something out there, and more than two, but there is something out there because that hand is freaking huge.
Wow.
So, um, but yeah,
Yeah.
well, I
Lot.
better, we better start wrapping it up here.
Yeah. No, let's do it. You hit the 2 hour mark on the dot, man. So let's wrap this baby up. And yeah, handprints are becoming more of a thing I'm seeing. And so, does Trackway Finding the Trackway have an active YouTube channel? How could we support you? Is there a way to support what you do? Maybe you have like a buy me a coffee or something. How do we get you more gear, more gas money, or anything like that? Or how do we support
Uh,
your channel if you have one? If there's any links to anything, let us know.
Um, really, the only thing I have is Finding the Trackway on the channel. And sorry about that. I gotta.
Yeah, no worries. So
Okay.
yeah, I'll be sharing that in the description of this video. And also I'll share your channel on a post as well. And maybe next time we could get Mrs. Trackway on here and maybe we could all hang out and do this all over again, man. If she's
Yeah.
around.
She would be more. She would do it. She's been on Nikki's show before.
Okay.
But
Oh,
yeah,
I've missed
Finding the
her.
Trackway. I just run a channel. I'm not monetized. I'm really not interested in. Um, I'm not really out there to like. I don't know. I'm just running on. mm, You know,
Yeah,
doing my own thing, and just a thank you or whatever is enough
yeah.
for me. And I'm sorry
Yeah.
about having to stop because I had somebody coming through the door on me there.
Yeah, no worries. Let's wrap it up,
So.
man. Let's do this.
Uh,
Thank you again, Trackway, for spending some time, some energy, some vibes with us, some knowledge. And we'll let you go now, man. But thank you again, man. And we'll be in touch, bro. I'll send you a text and you take care. And we'll be seeing each other further down the trackway here.
all right. Thanks.
All right, man. Good night. All right, y'all. Take care. Thank you everyone for
All
joining.
right.
And I'll see you all soon. We might do another live after this if we get a chase or something going. But yeah, y'all, I appreciate everyone hanging out, and we will see you all later. Cheers.